Hey everyone, this is Janelle Belgrave. I just want to apologize. I didn't realize it at the time, but my audio for the first like 4 minutes of this video is completely gone. Just choppy and sounds pretty bad. I do apologize for that. I didn't realize that my microphone wasn't behaving correctly. I think I've now since fixed it. But basically, what I was saying was just giving Blake Lively's birth data information, which is on the screen, so you can see that for yourself. I was also talking about her second house and what that can mean for her. Basically, that she is someone who has a lot of energy that's focused around material goods, her wealth, her assets, her finances, also a sense of self esteem and self worth, and also dealing with wanting to magnetize things towards herself to enjoy the comforts of life. And also, the second house has some connotations around the physical body, and that because it is the sign of Virgo, there can be a lot of self criticism, perfectionism, energies around really being wrapped up in the mind because her Mercury is so very strong in this chart that it kind of overwhelms everybody and pretty much controls the entire chart if you do the whole dance of rulership. So that's all that I was saying here. The audio does clear up around the 4 minute mark. So please, if you don't want to strain your ears or feel frustrated, I encourage you to jump forward to about minute 4. That's where the audio gets much better. And again, I apologize. Though I do hope you enjoy this video. Please leave me a comment. And yeah, I hope that we will continue this little journey with what's going on with Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, and Ryan Reynolds. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
It's Mercury that's always trying to sort out what's important, what is not important. My own Mercury is quivering. My Mercury is not this great. So I'm like, my Mercury's like, oh my God, how do we speak about this Mercury? This Mercury is always analyzing and critiquing and trying to figure out what is necessary versus what is not necessary, trying to sift and sort. When you think about the sign of Virgo, think about when it's harvest season and you're trying to take the wheat from the shaft. You are trying to organize what about this current harvest that we have we can keep for now and enjoy now, and what do we need to save for later? How are we going to process this? How are we going to plan this? It's always a thinking kind of Mercury, right? It's always basically in its head, very much in its head. And when a planet is so strong, and I think a lot of times there's a misconception about planets that are in their rulership, their domicile, their sign of exaltation. It's like they're so strong, they're so amazing. Yes, very talented, very skilled, um, bright Mercury, very smart, right? Amazing. However, there's always a downside with planets that are so strong, is because when you are a planet in its own sign, in its own like kingdom, in its own domain, when it is king or queen of the throne, it answers to nobody, right? So no other planet can step to this Mercury and say, "Hey, pump the brakes." Like, I'm king. Who are you talking to? I'll put your head, right? And so when that happens, depending on what's going on in someone's life, if you have a planet like this that's super powered and doesn't take direction or any kind of influence from anybody else, it can become a problem, right? Too much of a good thing easily become a bad thing. And I do think this is a major feature of its life. This Mercury is so strong that it overwhelms the entire chart. And I think it overwhelms Blake too. I think she probably deals with a lot of anxiety because she's constantly thinking about ways in which she's either not perfect, is trying to be perfect, is trying to do better, wants better, doesn't have better. That's not good. This is not good. I'm not good. They're not good. And on and on and on and on and on. It's just constant. And I think people are seeing this in some of the text messages that we've seen from her to Justin Baldoni. Like, they are nearly novels. It's so verbose. It is almost like overly so. Now, I get that she's an actress and an artist, and she's very sensitive about her shit. I get that. As an artist, as myself, I understand. But I think some of this is coming from a place of insecurity. If you're always looking for the flaws and never seeing the beauty, it can become a constant harassment of the self. And if you're constantly feeling terrible or critical about yourself, you're probably not that much better to other people if this is left unchecked, right? Uh, let's also double up by the fact that this Mercury is right next to the moon. So the moon talks about our emotions and our expression. And this Mercury moon dynamic, she is not stopping when it comes to expressing her feelings. Okay? It's next to Venus, which could be nice. I see this in the charts of people who tend to do really well with beautiful words, editors and writers and journalists and poets and songwriters. And I think that is even helped by this beautiful Neptune dynamic. But, Neptune can be a little bit deceptive. Neptune can want to make things even more glamorous, a bit more sparkly, a bit more this, very Hollywood. Have a strong Neptune in this, especially in her sixth house, working in the field of make believe, of acting, of Hollywood. This is a great thing to have. However, Mercury Neptune, even as a trine, the way she has it, again, we're running into the story of it's easy, it's great, it's so strong, so it's so fluid that it can become a problem. So while she probably is very talented with words and writing and creativity, sometimes Mercury Neptune can run into distortion of facts, aka storytelling, aka line, if it's not checked. Now, this can be great when you're writing a fictional story. This can be great when you're writing a song that you want to express yourself in. This can be great in many different ways. However, I do think we're seeing some of the negative qualities where we're having some distortion with facts coming out about how she kind of told the story of the essay or such rest by her co-star. See how that goes. Another thing in her chart that's really interesting is the fact that she is also a Sun Mars person, which is notable because she married a Scorpio. Scorpio is a sign that is ruled by Mars. And so even though she is this very particular, very exacting and perfectionist Virgo, she's also a Martian person, meaning she's not afraid of fighting. Meaning sometimes she sees conflicts where none exists. She might be someone where she feels like being defensive or aggressive is the way to go. But because it's in the sign of Virgo, I think it's kind of something that she tries to mask under this. Oh no, I couldn't possibly be rude. I couldn't possibly be doing this thing to you. No, right? Sometimes Martian people can be a little bit of I'm a tool, I'm a hammer, and if I'm a hammer, everything is a nail, including you. So it's not necessarily surprising to see that she's engaged in conflict because, Martian people like to fight. It's what it is. And this can be courage, right? This can be bravery. This can be a willingness to stand up for something. It's not always a negative, but again, if you're not maturing and growing up and trying to do better, or if you're so obsessed with being the best and being perfect, this anxiety, this fear can really kind of become projected outwards onto other people where other people become, but you're not. I'm not saying that's the case here. It could be all this alleged, this is what it is, right? Um, yeah, we'll see. I think she's someone who's very critical, kind of self-demeaning, um, and just has anger that she probably doesn't feel able to express without disturbing this perfect or growing image that she has of herself. I'm very curious what it was like for her growing up because in my research, I learned that she is the daughter of an kind of an entertainment family. Her father, her late father, was an actor. Her mother was, I believe, a talent scout or possibly a acting coach, also in the field of entertainment. Her older siblings, I think two of them are actors. Uh, One is Robin Lively, who you probably know from Teen Witch back in the day, older half siblings, I believe. And then she has another sibling who I think used to be an actress, but is now an actor. So, she really came up in a household or an environment where she had a lot of support, right? And she learned a lot. But there's parts of her chart that makes me feel like part of her journey in this lifetime is to get away from being so reliant on other people and to prove to herself that she is as brilliant as everybody else, that she doesn't need dragons. She doesn't need dragons to protect her. She can protect herself. She can fight for herself, right? And I do think that her relationships might be the thing that's catching her up, unfortunately. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But anyway, let's move on. I told myself I was going to keep this video short, and here I am talking way too much like a Virgo. Sorry, Virgos. The other thing about this chart is that she is a Leo rising, right? So Leo risings want to be warm, they want to be the center of attention, they want to glow, they want to lead, they want to sparkle, they want to be the thing that draws people to her, right? Sometimes Leos, if they're not healthy, can be a little bit self-involved, a little bit selfish, not understanding that they're not the only star, right? That everyone else is a star too, and they have to share the sky. I do feel like this Leo rising is hiding, masking all of this Virgo intensity, anxiety, spinning of the wheels, right? I wouldn't be surprised if underneath all of this Leo glamour is someone who might feel a little bit like, I don't know, am I good enough? Have I worked enough? I don't know. And to be honest, when you think about Blake Lively's story, I guess this is the best time for them to talk about her notes. You're also a future. There's so much going on in this chart. Um, in this lifetime, her karma with the North Node in Aries is that she's being told you have to learn to stand on your own. You have to learn how to strengthen your character, being independent, acting decisively, creating, following your own intuition, your own desires, right? When you follow others, when you give up your power to your partners, right? Libra on the South Node. This is someone who's very comfortable being a part of a partnership, whether it's a marriage or a friendship, but anything that's like me and somebody else. And I think that's a big part of Blake's character, her persona in the public world. Like Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively and Taylor Swift, right? I don't know if I've ever known Blake Lively as just Blake Lively without the accompaniment of somebody else. And to be honest, I really do wonder if she's ever lived by herself for any extended period of time. Because, she's been acting probably since her teen years. She probably still lived at home. I read that she actually didn't want to become an actress. She wanted to go to college, but she ended up not going because I think a family member helped her get a role, and the rest is history, right? But in this lifetime, she benefits more, she grows more, she matures more when she learns to be self-reliant, and be creative, initiate her own things, develop her unique talents. When she goes to school, because it's in the ninth house, when she pursues some sort of education, when she travels, it's kind of like an exploration karma. You have to go see the world and learn to be on your own and decide what you want to do on your own. And then you can partner with others because you'll know where you stand and you'll know what you want and you'll know so much more and you'll have faith in your own beliefs and you'll trust in your education, right? And it makes me wonder if going back to school or developing some sort of educational process, a training process to hone her skills either as an actress or something else would be a benefit to bring to Blake Lively. Because, like I said, she's been acting since she was a teenager. I don't know if she's ever really gotten to live by herself, truly. She was dating someone on set, Penn Badgley, I think is the name of the actor who was her co-star on Gossip Girl and then went on to do You on the TV show that he's the lead of right now. They were together for like 3-4 years before she ended up getting with Ryan Reynolds and then got married. Blake got married at age 25. And then she spent the last 10 years having children. She's done some roles during that time, but you know, when you're a mother of four, even when you're wealthy and established, you probably have babysitters or au pairs or nannies, whatever. A big part of your focus is probably going to be on your children, right? And on your marriage. So I do think that Blake has fallen into the trap of her South Node, which again is interesting because a lot of these issues that she's having right now was happening when she was having her nodal return. The nodes have just moved over into Pisces and to Virgo, but all of this initial drama that's starting to play out now was happening when she was having a return. And now there's speculation coming forward that it's not really Blake Lively who's doing this, it's Ryan Reynolds. So it's just like, girl, is this really what you want? Or are you being controlled through your marriage? And the difficulty with that is for her to have this South Node in Libra is like some of the karma is that you can pay debts through your relationships. You can suffer losses through your partnerships or marriages if you do not stand up and become an individual on your own. I think it's really interesting in some of the audio and what's been coming out, or the text messages where she was talking about her being policing and her dragons are going to defend her and all this kind of stuff. And she was so hurt that Justin Baldoni didn't take her edits the way that she wanted to, and that it was one thing that he didn't accept them, but to just say like he basically saying that he didn't honor her in the way that she wanted to be honored as a queen. And I was just like, ma'am, this is not your movie. You signed up to be an actress. And my question is for her, it's just like for someone who is as wealthy, right? I would think. I don't know what her net worth is or what how much she has with her husband. But someone who has the means, right? You guys have made some serious money, not only through acting, but through also business partnerships. Why is it that you don't do your own stuff? Like, why don't you do a short film? Or, I don't, it just seems weird. I know she has the hair care line and I think she has the alcohol line, but I'm like, if those aren't your passions and you'd much rather be a writer, right? Like, nothing's truly stopping you, right? It's not as if money is a problem. Like, you could write something. Hell, you can write anonymously. You can have a pen name and write if you want to, right? I'm just, and again, I'm wondering how much of this is because she doesn't feel confident enough to do it on her own. Like, even this movie, like, this could have been, had none of this happened, and I suspect that had she not interfered and Brian hadn't interfered and all this hadn't happened, this movie probably could have been even bigger than what it was. It made a lot of money. I think it made like $800 million. But we're not talking about the movie anymore. We're talking about this. And it was meant to be a really transformative movie, right? It's a movie about relationships and how domestic violence can happen in relationships and how to get, the character growth to eventually find a way out of that violent relationship. And instead, I feel like the film was watered down and the focus got off of the topic of domestic violence and abuse. And now we're just talking about these terrible relationships that Blake seems to be in with everyone that she comes across. Like, and I wonder, had this never happened, how big the movie would be. Maybe she would really solidify herself in her career. And she would have more opportunity to do more creative things and have a little bit more power that would have come more organically than this. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I just feel like the story is becoming a little bit clearer to me now. It's just like you have to step out on your own merits and fail on your own merits, right? Because now she's possibly losing relationships over it. I think Taylor Swift's team has been dropping kind of like, saying, oh yeah, I'm stepping back. I don't want to be involved, even though she probably is involved. It's a shame. This could have been a really great moment for Blake Lively, but because of her past behavior too, I think all this Virgo stuff, she's also, this is a really tight stellium. So all these planets are kind of working together. Mercury is really next here. Also, this Mercury Mars situation, like the things that she said to people, like she's come across as kind of rude, kind of a mean girl, just like she hasn't been someone that's developed a relationship and be likable. And this is not to say that her as a woman or any woman has to be Miss Susie Sunshine, really sweet all the time, and just the most perfect thing in the world in order to be respected and considered a good person. But the videos, I'm just like, girl, what? What are you saying? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Why would you say that to somebody? Right? Why would you be so rude? Like, why would you be so unkind? And I really do wonder if it's because underneath all of that prickliness and rudeness is someone who's secretly very insecure and uncertain, anxious, and what we see is a defense mechanism that's really been costing her quite a bit. No, and this goes back many years. There was someone who said that she was a casting director or someone who worked in casting, and she was like, in Hollywood, your reputation gets around really quickly. She said even from a young age when Blake was, I guess not exactly acting yet, but getting ready to through her family, she already had the reputation of being challenging, of being bratty, of being entitled. And I'm like, and that's followed her for years. And it's just like, do you want to change that? Because now all of this is coming back around, not so pleasant way, and it's not supporting your claims. right? People see these interactions that you have with other people, and they're able to paint a picture of who you are based upon the things that you've done before. And I guess rightly so, right? This is not a one-off. This is not, twice. This is consistent. Yeah. Anyway, um, yeah. And all of these Virgo planets have been under stress from Saturn. So I would imagine that Saturn's been looking at her like from Pisces, like, do you want to be more compassionate and empathetic? And she's like, what? Do you want to be kinder to the working man? Like, do you want to be, that's what Pisces is about, like the empathy, the compassion, the downtrodden, the working class, like, is the sign like the fishes, the Jesus fishes, like loaves of bread and fishes and giving of the self and charity and like music and art and all the things that can uplift us. Right? It can also be deception and addiction, all that as well. But the higher octave is like give of yourself, be kind, right? You have so much. It's Pisces, it's Jupiter, it's the oceans, right? I digress. Moving on. So I hope that's given a rough idea. Well, one more thing. The other thing I'll add is Saturn. This Saturn in Sagittarius is square to this Virgo stellium, but most tightly is the moon. So I do think too that she might struggle again with possible depression, some sadness, and just Saturn can make us very hard on the self. So if you already have all this critical Virgo energy, and then you have Saturn next door by square being like, and you're still not enough. And it's still not enough. Mm. And then Uranus as well, just kind of making her a little bit off and unusual and not feeling comfortable with it. This is creative energy. Squares can be very creative. Friction can be very creative. Friction makes heat. Heat makes fire. Fire means inspiration, it means action, right? But if this creative dynamic doesn't have an outlet, it can come across as what it comes across with her. Just kind of harsh, right? But I don't think the harshness that she gives to other people is any match for the harshness that she gives to herself. I think inside her world, she beats herself up quite a bit. I do. And it could be problematic. It could be something she really struggles with. And I know, I'm not thrilled about what I'm seeing for her, like seeing all the videos and the clips and the stories. I'm just like, oh girl, ugh, ugh, ah, come on, come on. It pays to be nice. It pays to be kind sometimes. I think this is a very hard lesson for her to learn. It's just like you picked the wrong time to be mean. I will say that. Moving on. Let's go to some of the things I'm seeing for her transit wise. Now there's a lot. So I might have to decide how much to give, or I might even have to make another video, possibly. I don't know. But let's just go what's happening in her transits. What's interesting is that now that Pluto is officially in Aquarius for good, he is challenging all of her relationships. Pluto wants us to change. He is a planet of transformation. He is a planet that says, let's look underneath the hood of this car that's not functioning well and figure out what is the root of this dysfunction. And when Pluto does that, most times we're like, no, 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 that clunking sound you hear is absolutely normal. I don't need to look under the hood of this fucking car, Pluto. And Pluto's like, yes, you do. Because if you keep driving it this way, it's going to eventually get you into a terrible accident and kill you. So Pluto really does say you're either going to change, and that change won't always be pleasant. Most often it's not, because in doing that change, you have to purge a lot. You have to surrender a lot, because it's like you have to make space for the better version of yourself, whatever that might be. And if you don't, everything's going to fall apart and it's going to be hell. Literally hell. I am the Lord of the underworld. I will take you to hell, girl, if you don't do this fucking work. Basically. And so Blake, this Pluto in Aquarius actually started to dip into her life around the springtime of 2023, which is when she was originally filming this movie. So even back in 2023, Pluto was already poking his head into this house saying, "Hey girl, about these relationships you got going on. Do you want to change how you're interacting with people or not?" And she was like, "No, not really. I actually want to continue going on like I have." He's like, "Great, cool, I'll be back." And so he dipped out of Aquarius, went back into Capricorn for a bit, and now he's back for good. And he's saying, "Hey, girl, how about those relationships we were talking about?" And so at this point in time, Blake might be shaking her boots because now she sees that this is not going right? Because Pluto's going to be like all your relationships, business partnerships, open enemies, all of this interactive stuff that got going on. I am here to change it. And I might even have to bring some powerful players in the form of open enemies to get you to change. And it's interesting with Leo and Aquarius because the sign of Leo, like I said, can definitely be like the star, but it can also be a tyrant sometimes if it's not checked, right? The supreme leader. And now that Aquarius, I think a lot of people are finding that they're not interested in having supreme leaders and tyrants running the show. And we're going to see a lot more collective energy coming forward, being like, no, that doesn't work. And this is why I think this case is important, not only for the interpersonal between these people, the amount of money on the table to be lost. I mean, $400 million. Good God. But but if if it turns out that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were using their power in not so great ways and plotting and scheming to steal someone else's work and get the rights to books and do all this hijinks and colluding with newspapers and threatening movie production companies like Sony, if it comes out that they were mismanaging their power to destroy somebody else, that's not going to vibe very well in the age of Pluto because it's such an oppressive misuse of power. And I think now that we're thankfully out of Pluto and Capricorn, we've had such a hierarchical structure with Pluto, right? We think about Capricorn, think about these are the traditional rules of society, and this is how we do things. Anytime I think about Capricorn, I think about the UK. Um, as an aside, I'm someone that grew up really liking dramas, especially from the UK. I can tell you why. But I was transfixed with like Henry VIII, Jane Austen novels, and like that kind of stuff because as an American, the UK society has such a rigid structure. It's very much, again, king and queen at the top, the landed gentry, maybe the merchant class, and everybody else is a peasant. And don't you dare try to rise above your station. Because if you do, the people at the top are going to reject you. And then the people who are amongst your own class are going to reject you and tell you, how dare you try to be better than what you are. It's wild. It's so crazy to watch. I'm just like, what? Like, how dare, like, if you were the son of a farmer and you want to be, I don't know, a doctor, they're like, right? Such cheek, right? Such arrogance. How dare you try to rise above? Like, we've seen this recently in the news, like Meghan Markle, right? An actress. How dare she rise to Duchess? You know what I mean? So that's what I think of with Pluto and Capricorn. It's like this very rigid structure of society. And for us in the US, we spent those, 16 years of Pluto in Capricorn basically falling all over ourselves for wealthy people, right? Kardashians, Carters, everyone who has any kind of money and influence of any kind. The influencer trend came about, like, the tech bros, like, all of it was all about amassing as much money as possible, right? But then we saw this huge class divide come out of it. Here we are, and looking around, being, oh shit, we spent so much time, praising these people for their money and realizing that they were actually kind of sucking all the resources up to the top. And here we are, including queries, looking around like there's nothing left for the rest of us. So I think we're going to see a lot more pushback from the collective against this whole, we are the wealthy ones, we are the golden Leo energy, and we've taken all this money and power and we deserve it and nothing else for you. I think we might see a lot more like, actually, no. So I don't think this was the right time for Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds to pull this kind of. And of course, Justin Baldoni is an Aquarius sun, so we'll get that. And it's taken an Aquarius sun to come through to help her learn this very difficult lesson about relating to people as a whole, I think. Okay, so Pluto's in that house. He's not going anywhere. It's just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter. It's just going to get more and more intense for her as this Pluto gets to her descendant. That's going to be a while. The next thing we got going on is Saturn and Pisces in her eighth house of shared resources, right? This can bring about a fear of death, heavy taxation, financial losses, especially when it's across from this second house that she has here. She might lose some serious money if she's not careful. This is not the only reason why that would be the case. Being unable to rely on others, can't really rely on other people's resources. This could be her husband's money, too. I don't know. I mean, I think they're both being sued, but he may not be thrilled about that. Now, I don't know if he's been really colluding. He might be. That's the rumor, but he may not be too thrilled about this whole thing, honestly. It could really make it down. Yeah. And the end of old values for her. She might be really considering terms of, wow, how did I get here? Because this is challenging her. Don't like that. I don't. I'm sure there's more I can say about that, but let's move on, right? Let's see. Okay, so moving into the future, is there anything else? So, like I said, the nodes are now in Pisces and Virgo. Where's the phone? Virgo, right? So all of these eclipses coming up that we have going on, starting when? We're gonna start this month? No, probably in March. But I was looking for the eclipses that impact her chart pretty directly. And that's starting with this September. And I think her moon takes a very direct hit next March, which is when the trial starts. So a lot of her resources, her income, her assets, and the assets and income of her partner, and those she share things with, like her business partnerships too, the income made for that, made from those industries too, might take a hit. I think we've already seen that. I think her beauty line, her hair care line hasn't been doing too well. I don't know if she has on the alcohol line as well. That's not doing too hot. Yeah, this could be part of Saturn, but also with these nodes too. Even though the North Node is in Pisces, we'll see how the North Node helps her or doesn't help her. I don't know. Maybe this is taking on more debt. I don't know how expensive these legal bills are going to be. I don't know. Even though, I think it's a misconception too that, oh, they have so much money, they have so much wealth, it shouldn't matter. I'm like, yeah, but wealthy people have budgets too. Especially if you have multiple homes, you have staff, you have bills, they still have bills. If you're living in a condo or, penthouse in New York City, that's not cheap. And even if you're making a ton of money, still money out, right? And if you're not managing your resources well, that could be a problem. And if you're being sued for $400 million and possibly more, especially if you're looking at possible loss of work, right? Because this is doing damage to her reputation. People may not want to take the risk of working with her again. Or Ryan. They might be like, you know what, that story, I don't know, like you guys are big stars, but do I want to run the risk of you acting insane on my set? No, maybe not. I don't think so. So we'll definitely see. So let's move forward a little bit. And then I can even wrap it up because I promised myself I would not go too long. Already I'm going too long. So the thing that made me a little bit like was that when we get to next spring, so I took these notes on January 26th. Since then, in the past 4 days, more information has come forward, right? But when I was taking these notes, as astrologers, we tend to look forward into the future. Just want to see how might this play out. And what I noticed was that the animate this quick. So let's see. Let's go forward to first of all this coming spring, summer, when Neptune and Saturn move into the sign of Aries. So I think that's going to be important. And the reason why, let's do this. So we're watching Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. They're going to be moving over into Aries. And yes, here we go. Right? This is going to be around May of 2025, give or take. And then they're going to retrograde backwards. So this is like similar to what Pluto did back and forth before he fully came into Aquarius. These two guys are going back and forth and giving us a preview of what they're going to bring into the story going forward. So in this case, I had a chuckle. So I was just like, okay, what's next? So Saturn and Neptune are coming to her north node. Now, remember what I said about her nodal axis and karma that she has. Okay. The other thing about the ninth house is that it has connotations around, yes, television, radio, film, broadcasting, podcasting, journalism, foreign affairs, foreign travel, right? Higher education, philosophy, but also the law, right? So the fact that she's getting embroiled in a legal conflict while Saturn and Neptune are going into her ninth house, I was like, oh, this is the time. Even though she has Jupiter in this house, so maybe she does have some protection. I don't know. Her Jupiter's okay. It is retrograde though, but lucky for her, she has Jupiter. So maybe in the ninth house, maybe that Jupiter will be helping her more than I realize. But Saturn and Neptune in this house is definitely going to bring some pressure for sure. And Saturn in particularly, I'm looking at because it's sitting on her nose. And traditionally, when Saturn comes to the North Node, we're typically looking at taking on long-term responsibilities. It's the best time to build your career, to buy or start a business, and life tends to go your way. Because Saturn is saying, you have shown me that you're mature enough to handle more responsibility, and I am the planet of responsibility. So here am I giving you more to work on, to enjoy the fruits of that labor and to benefit from that work, right? Because typically it will improve your life or help you get further along in life through the effort that we make. Neptune can bring some protection, angelic protection, inspiration and guidance, maybe some spiritual or religious influence can come through Neptune. It's really great if you're already in a particular field that works with images and art, photography, acting, all of the Neptunian, inspirational fields, right? So Neptune might help. I'm not too sure, but sometimes Neptune can be sneaky and says he thought it was helping, but in reality it wasn't. But the catch is with Saturn is that it's also a karmic point of when he comes to visit this moon, it can really be a reaping of what you have sown. And you may have to pay back your debts with this configuration. And in Blake's case, seeing how she has conducted herself over the years, and she hasn't been really nice. All of that evidence, I don't know if they're going to be doing like character assessments or anything like that, showing well, previously, she's kind of shown the same attributes in other sets, and people have had the same issues that Justin's had with her. So, what does that say? It might go like that. I was talking to my friend Mecca, and she was saying Saturn Aries is taking responsibility for your actions, consequences, Saturnian responsibility and consequences for Aries actions, right? So it's not just one thing. Very often in astrology, you need at least two, three configurations that speaking to the same thing to say, like, you know what, this is likely to happen. So while this is happening, I want you to remember that Aries as a sign is ruled by the planet Mars. Okay. Blake has Mars in Aries. Sorry, Mars in Virgo. Although, and this is actually astrology, and Tisha, the mirror point for Mars in Virgo, is actually Aries. So if we were to roll this chart in half, all those Virgo planets would transform into Aries planets, which maybe makes more sense in terms of her combativeness and prickliness. I digress. Um, this Mars in Virgo is dealing with the South Node. So think of this South Node as potentially weakening. This Mars cannot do battle, cannot defend this ninth house, cannot defend the fourth house, which is the other house that it rules over through the sign of Scorpio. This Mars will not be equipped. He will not be full strength. He will not be empowered to do battle the way that he normally would do battle due to this South Node and the eclipses affecting this house. So the fact that Saturn is coming into the ninth house regarding the legal situation that she's in. Pluto is in her seventh house again regarding legal situation that she's in. And then the South Node is going through her second house regarding her finances and how it's impacting this. And the fact that Mars, who controls her ninth house, is also being sucked out by the South Node. This is not looking like an equation for victory. And to add more insult to injury, Saturn in the early degrees of Aries is also making an inconjunct or a quincunx or an uncomfortable situation with Mars. So this Mars is taking licks. He is not battle ready. He is not going to show up ready to fight. I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if it did. Because the nose can be a little bit tricky. Like, is it going to perform well? Is it going to perform bad? But I'm not getting the impression that this Mars is going to be ready to do battle, right? And so when like I said, I took notes for this back a couple of days ago. So if we go forward to next March, this becomes exact for good in March of 2026. And when I put down in my notes is that this Saturn aspect for her becomes exact on March 7th, and the trial date has now been set for March 9th. And by that point in time, let's see here, by then, the South Node is much closer to Mars and much closer to Mercury. Remember, Mercury rules over her money house, and Mercury also rules over her 11th house, which can be her friends, her associates, her groups, people who share common interests and values with her to an extent, people who share her vision for the future. They might leave. And I think we're seeing that already with Taylor Swift stepping away with girl. My name is Bennett and I'm not in it. Oh, and then at the same time, she's gonna have a Mars opposition. Like, girl. Okay, so without going any further, because I could say more. There's a lot more that I can go into, and maybe I'll finish it up when I go look at the other charts. But if Blake Lively was sitting in my chair and getting a reading about this particular thing, what would I tell her? Stop right now, girl. I think it would be wise for you to publicly apologize and figure out a way to settle this before you go any further. Because going into the future, this is not looking too hot for you. Now, I will say this. We live in the world that we live in. And here in the US, we live in the world with some really corrupt people running shit. It is what it is. The law as we know it may not function well. And if there's so much evidence that comes out that paints Blake and Ryan in such a negative light that everyone's like, yeah, no, this is guilty. I don't want, like whatever. Suppose that continues to be the case. Suppose they don't have anything on Justin. Suppose everything they said has not been true. Suppose all that is the case. Suppose that happens and they go to trial and they still win. That would be not great because I know sometimes celebrity culture gets like, oh, it's so frivolous and not true. Why do people care about these rich people and their problems? It's not so much that, but they are kind of like the temperature test, right? What happens with them, with all their money and power in the world, how things play out for them really kind of sets the tone for how things are going in other parts of our society, right? Because they're the other extreme. So if they're telling a story that money and power is the equivalent of right makes might or might makes right. There we go. Might makes right in the age of Aquarius. I don't know how well that's going to go over. That might really piss off a lot of people and really point out to us just how dangerous of a situation that we are in as a society if the legal system does not do justice, right? And we know this already, right? Like for everyone else who's black and brown and queer or any other non-white situation, we know very often that justice is often not served for us, right? But if justice is not served for a fairly good looking, you know, spicy white dude like Justin Baldoni with his bedroom voice and his feminist ideals and his nice guy character, right? He's such an Aquarius. It's like he's so nice. Like he's just like everyone's friend. Like I'm not saying he's perfect, but he's a nice guy. Like and maybe that's what pissed off Ryan and Blake so much. Maybe they're just like, fuck this nice guy. I want his stuff. I'm gonna take it, right? That might play out very negatively, I think. So, but in a world where justice is served and the court of public opinion is powerful, I would say to Blake, quit while you're at it. Don't let this go any further because I'm not sure your reputation will be able to recover from this if, kind of lie on somebody's name and then have the audacity of dragging him through court to save face for yourself. Right. In the meantime, I would also say, like, this is very threatening to her relationships. It's very threatening to her marriage. It's super threatening to her money. Um, yeah, there's a lot on the line here for someone who is as powerful as wealthy as Blake. The other question too is like, how much of that money is her money? If and I'm gonna probably look at the charts of Ryan. Because I do think their marriage is also coming across some very difficult aspects too. So this is kind of like a make or break moment for their marriage. It might not make it out. I'm not saying that it won't, but this is really like a serious event. Like this is not a one off. This is not like, oh, forget it. Like, no, no, like this could destroy them. Not just as individuals financially, but as a couple and their family. Like, this is big deal. This is a very big deal. And I'm looking at Pluto and how Pluto is moving through this chart. Eventually, this Pluto is going to square her IC and her MC. So, and there are other things. Like I said, I didn't want to put the other charts. I'm still going too long. But if you want me to continue with Blake's chart and really talk about those other things that I see going on for her, she might be looking at a situation where her whole life is going to change. And it might be really devastating for her. She might lose her marriage. She might lose her reputation. She could lose her family or the family that she knows it to be. She really could. So, and it could be for something as silly as, I didn't listen. Like potentially allowed my husband and my best friend to talk me into being even more than I needed to be. Now, listen, let me just say this. I'm not letting Blake off the hook. All right. I'm not saying this is because, she allowed other people to control her. Maybe that's part of it. But I think this is a pattern of bad behavior that's catching up to her in a very serious fashion. And if she doesn't start to take accountability for herself and stand on her own 2 feet and work on her stuff so that she can build her confidence and work through her anxiety and work through the perfectionism and work through the irritation and the anger and the frustration and the projection, like you have the means to live a good life that you love. That is a privilege, right? Use it. But you can't hide behind your spouse or your best friend or your name in the space. And like this chart is not set up for this. Like this is a person who's supposed to be working, who's supposed to be learning, who's supposed to be honing her craft and developing confidence through effort. And so a lot of people are talking about, oh, she's not that good of an actress and like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but she probably could be. Hell, she may not even want to be an actress. She might want to be, I don't know, this chart might be really good for like merchandising, selling cute things. I don't know, pet collars or some shit like that. I don't know. She could probably be successful, but she has to work at it. And I just don't know if, because of the way that she's led her life, going from her parents' home to being single to being in 2 relationships, getting married really young, having 4 kids in 10 years, where has there been the time and the space to really work on herself? And if Pluto comes through the way that I think he might come through, he might push her into singledom to get her to do that fucking work and own her and earn her own way and feel good about it. It will suck to see the life fall apart for sure. It can be super painful. Pluto tends to be painful as well, girl. Trust you me, I know firsthand. Pluto's just like, I'm not here for your tears. Throw that away. Right? We're here to really change your life and help you become a better person. That requires you to let go of this old way of being. So that if that's an end of a partnership and she's alone for her by herself for the first time on her own merit, and she has to work and learn how to be whoever it is that she wants to be, that could happen. Sorry, it's fine. But if I was your astrologer, that's what I'd say to you. Cut your losses now and figure out what it is that you want for your life outside of your husband, outside of your kids, outside of your besties. Try to plan for learning new things, traveling, educating yourself, standing up for yourself, creating your own shit. Create your own shit. Do it. Right? But also be able to take the hard lessons that come with that, right? You might fail on occasion. You're not going to like your stuff anymore. That's okay. But eventually you'll get better at it because of all that Virgo energy. This is someone who's going to eventually perfect, perfect, perfect until they get almost perfect. You're never going to be perfect, girl. It's never going to happen. And no one else is perfect either. So let that go. Right? Let go of the self-criticism, let go of the self-inflicted wounding, let go of the over-analyzing, let go of the all of that anxiety inducing swirling around that's probably killing you. Right? Let it go. Say you're sorry, learn to forgive others, learn to forgive yourself, and let this go. Because ultimately, if you don't, Pluto and Saturn and the nodes are going to drag you until you get the lesson. And I would rather not get dragged. It sucks. It sucks to be dragged. I've been dragged. I might be getting dragged right now, girl. And it's unpleasant. But I understand the fear of not wanting to let go. I do. I will encourage you to do so. Yeah. Good luck. All right. I did not meet my half hour. That was ambitious, but it's okay. We're going to get better. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like, share. So much to me. If you like this style of reading and you want to get a reading for yourself, please know that I do this work all the time. I love talking with clients. I love helping people figure out what's going on in their life and how they can move forward next for the best possible outcome. And I try to do it with a sense of humor and some kindness, right? Because we're all trying our best on this earth. It's not about being perfect. It's about doing the work, showing up, taking your lessons, and that's all you can do, right? I hope this world is a loving world, and we can make it that way. First thing we gotta do is love the sun. So, from me learning to love myself to you learning to love yourself, I love you, and I hope you're doing well, and I hope to see you soon. And bye.